All right, good morning and welcome to Keeping It Real. Brought to you by the Sean Ethell team at Long Realty Studios. This is Dion Ethell, and I'm keeping it real today. And today I got kind of a special guest. Sean, is it Yeterian?
Perfect.
Okay, perfect. So you may even follow him. He's got thousands of followers. He's known as the Arizonan Yeti, right, on your Facebook page?
That's correct, Arizonan Yeti.
It's an interesting combination of great stories and stuff and very descriptive material, but he's a wonderful photographer, so there's some really, I don't know, I found it emotional. Your photography is more of kind of like our personal photographer for real estate. She's actually more of a person who does outdoor pictures and everything. I guess art, I guess that's the only way I could describe it. Is it's an art form. It kind of confers an emotional response. But before we get too deep into that, welcome to the show. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. It's a privilege being here. Thank you.
And I love the work that you do. And we're going to dive into a bunch of different topics, from everything from your work with your two favorite passions, I think, photography and writing. But we also want to talk a little bit about artificial intelligence, which seems like a pretty big stray from all that. But we'll do that too. But first, we want to get to know you. Sean, tell us a little bit about your background. I mean, in our show, we always talk about, okay, where'd you come from? How'd you get here? Because so many people have come from all over the world. So how did you come to Sierra Vista?
Well, that was a long that was a long path, actually. I mean, I was born in Florida and raised in California, making me a native tourist. And but I joined the Army in 1977, and over a 28-year career, I found myself at Fort Huachuca as a garrison commandant sergeant major, and retired in June of 2006. Went right to work as a government contractor with General Dynamics, where I taught Middle Eastern culture, as well as a couple of other courses before I finally decided, I think work is highly overrated. So I went ahead and paid off all my debt, and I quit the workforce altogether. It would take me 5 years, Dion, before I finally decided what I wanted to be when I grew up. I went through a fad of reading just about every book I could get my hands on about the sciences: quantum mechanics, chaos theory, small world networks. You name it. I was deep into reading all about these theories and the implications that it had towards the way I would view my reality, and it shifted a lot of things. But as with anything, you start getting bored and you start saying, well, what am I going to do with all of this newfound knowledge? I decided I would go back to college, and this time I got a degree through Cochise College in media production arts. That's when I picked up a camera. So in 2016, August 2016 is when I bought my first DSLR, Canon T5 Rebel camera.
Yep, I've got one.
And
around their house.
And I began traipsing around the countryside, taking pictures, and the bug bit. Boy, did it bite! It bit hard. And I haven't looked back since, other than to change out my camera. I still have my Rebel, but I bought a more elaborate, more expensive camera body and the lenses to go with it, and it's become my passion, my number one passion. Well, check that. Number one, possibly it's on the same level as my passion for writing. Not novel type of writing, but just few short paragraphs, brevity in order to help inspire, get a chuckle, or whatever the goal is that can best accompany whatever image it is that I'm trying to join it up with.
Now, reaching back to your past and talking about your Army career and everything, were you here a long period of time? Or did you travel the world a little bit? Did you see some of the world?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, my first duty assignment was in Korea, Camp Humphreys, and then I went to Virginia after that. And then I went to language school in Monterey, California, then to Augsburg, Germany, where I met my wife. She's from Augsburg.
Oh, okay.
A place called Kissing. Yes, Kissing.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely. It's just outside.
That's kind of interesting.
Yeah,
Not many people can say that.
I met her at a German-American beer fest, of all places. And then we got out of the Army, and that's when I moved to Alaska. And I spent a couple of years in Alaska before returning to the service, going to Fort Sill to learn how to be a field artilleryman, and then back to Germany. Then back to Fort Sill, then back to Germany.
Oh, wow.
So, and then finally, I wound up at the Sergeant's Major Academy to teach the First Sergeant's course, become a student because they messed around and promoted me to Sergeant Major. And then I went to Fort Sill yet again to eventually become the Garrison Sergeant Major there. And then they popped me over here to Fort Huachuca.
Now, what'd your wife think about all that travel and everything? Because obviously she was with you part of the time, right?
Oh, I'll tell you what, military spouses are the most amazing people that you will ever meet because they have to learn compromise. You look up the word compromise in the dictionary, and it's likely you'll see a military spouse as the shining photographic example of what that word means because they really do need to compromise a lot of what their desires are. They have to put it on a shelf in order for you to be able to achieve a career.
Yeah.
And
so true.
So I have nothing but praise for my wife in the way that she dealt with it. We've been married now for 42 years, and she is probably the most remarkable person I have ever met in my life.
That's awesome. Well, these journeys that you take, and it's interesting that you ended up here. Was that by choice that you stayed here then?
Yeah, that's it. Well, it's not really a funny story, but it is a story. I was at the academy and I was teaching the First Sergeant's course, and that's in El Paso, Texas. And the guy who was best man at my wedding, mine and my wife's wedding, lived here in Sierra Vista. He worked on post, and so we came out here for a 4-day weekend visit, and I fell in love with the place. And I told my wife, I said, you know what? I think I'm going to retire here when it's time to retire. At that time, we didn't know when that was going to happen, but it's like when it does happen, this needs to be on our short list. And she agreed. And so when it finally did happen, we wasted no time, bought a house, settled in, and now the rest is history. Back then, little did I know that where I was moving to would be a photographer's dream.
Yeah, right.
And so this place, since I picked up photography, is how can you go wrong? You can't go wrong.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's talk a little bit about photography for just a second, and then we'll take a quick break. But so you got into this, and it hasn't been that long. I was actually shocked when I saw your pictures because you haven't been really doing photography all that long.
No, I haven't. That's true.
And I was stunned with, like I said, the artwork and the I don't know, just this emotional thing that you're creating with your photography, and great photography too. So you know your equipment. I don't know if you were an equipment guy all the time. I'm kind of a gear guy myself, but you seem like you picked it up very well.
Sometimes if people ask, I tell them, I don't want you to see what I saw. I want you to feel what I felt when I was standing there.
Oh, that's awesome.
And so that's the approach that I take. And most of that is done in post-processing. And I use Photoshop. I am a proud user of Photoshop. I've learned how to use Photoshop to enhance my production on my photography. Yeah. So that it does emote, so that it sends out the sense of what it actually feels like to be standing in a place like that. So that when you look at the frame, you almost feel as though you could be in the frame yourself. And that's the hope. That's the goal. Don't always accomplish it, but that's definitely the direction I try and take with my photography. A good friend of mine told me when I was searching for a camera to buy, he said, don't worry so much about the camera. Just find a camera, buy it, because it's not the camera anyhow. It's the person behind the camera that matters the most.
Good advice.
So I took that to heart, and I think it's helped me.
Wow. Well, that sounds like a great place for a break. Let's take a quick break. We'll come right back, folks. Sean Yeterian, the Arizonan Yeti, if you know him from Facebook. If you don't, take a look at it today. But we'll be right back, folks, after these brief messages. We'll be right back. All right, welcome back to Keeping It Real. I'm Dion Ethell, and I'm your host, and I've got Sean Yeterian here. You might know him from Facebook. If you look up the Arizonan Yeti, you'll find his photographs and his commentary there, and got like over 12,000 followers.
Almost 13.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, I never saw that coming, Dion.
No?
I'll be honest. No.
Yeah.
I was doing this because I loved it, not because I was chasing followers, but they just came. I can't stop them.
You're doing something right because, I mean, very few people have that kind of a following, especially a personal page. And so that's just amazing.
Well, I can tell you why I think it is, because the page wasn't always called the Arizonan Yeti page.
Okay.
I started the page under the name The Retired Yeti.
Okay.
And the Yeti, first of all, comes from my last name, Yeterian.
Yeah.
That was my nickname since I was like 19 years old.
Oh, really?
Because nobody wanted to try and pronounce the last name Yeterian. It was too difficult, so they just abbreviated and started calling me the Yeti. The Yeti grew into my brand all the way through my adult life, and it sticks with me to this day. So I had this page called The Retired Yeti, and it was a blog. It's where I wrote about my epiphanies as I was reading about the sciences that I told you about.
Right.
And implications. I wrote poetry. I wrote stream of consciousness type of writing. Nothing very long. Anything from a short essay to a long-term paper to a couple of paragraphs just to get my point across, because I always thought that brevity is the only thing that's going to be able to reach people, because nobody wants to spend an hour reading what you wrote. So I try and get my points across as quickly and as impactfully as I possibly can.
Did you have a goal when you first started that? I mean, were you
No.
trying to reach a certain people, or I mean, what was it?
Well, I have found, much like my Army career, that as I learn new skills, I'm excited to broadcast them, export them, to share them with other people. Maybe it's a little ego, but mostly it's because I want everybody to be able to do the same sorts of things, because if I can do it, then anybody can do it. That was always my attitude. And so as I was learning, because, I was long detached from school, while I was actually absorbing the information that I was reading about sciences, talking about boring, I was able to convert that newfound knowledge into ideas and concepts that were flowing through my head as the result. And so for 3 years, I was doing this on the Retired Yeti. And then I went back to school and I picked up a camera. And I kind of left all of those writings on the Retired Yeti page alone, but the images that I was taking, I was putting on there.
Now.
By then, my Retired Yeti page had grown to about 350 people. And I was amazed that there would be 350 people who actually gave a darn about these weird things that I was writing. But there were.
Yeah.
I guess there's a lot of weird people out there. And so they gravitated towards me. But then when I started putting pictures, I stopped writing, but more people started coming to the page. And then because of the sharp learning curve I had with photography, I hadn't yet reached the point where I was going to bring the writing back into the fold, into the mix. But about a year later, when I felt more comfortable with being around a camera, I began writing narratives to accompany my photography.
Yeah.
Everything from how I did what I did to conversations with my car that I named Smadge, or my camera that I named Cruise, and gave them personalities. And we had discussions about all kinds of worldly things. Cam, a Grouch, Smadge at the time. I replaced Smadge with Cruise. Smadge was a Subaru. Now Cruise is my Bronco Sport. And so he has a personality. And so we have these conversations, and people actually gravitated to the personalities that I had created, so much that when I was featured artist at the Huachuca Art Gallery a few years ago, there were people who wanted to take selfies with my Subaru Smadge.
Oh, really? awesome.
And they didn't want to take pictures with me.
Not you.
No, not me. They wanted pictures with Smudge.
Oh, that's
Smudge,
awesome.
by the way, is kind of a honorific term that soldiers used when referring to their sergeant's major. Smudge.
Yeah.
They would call him Smudge.
That's
and
awesome.
that's how the Subaru got that name. So anyhow, the page began to grow because of either inspirational sorts of narratives or how I did it or poetry or humorous conversations that I would have with my camera or my car and on and on and on. I never knew what was going to be spit out on the page next, but it was always something new and unique, and people actually began to enjoy the writings as much and sometimes more than the images that I was posting. So the synergy began to create this reaction that one or the other was never going to be achieved on their own. And that is how I think the page grew to the point of where it is today, and it's still growing. And
was there a point where it really accelerated, or was that it when you kind of came together with it?
Well, it was slogging along when I was only writing, but once I started doing pictures, it increased in speed. But when I combined the two, then it surged. I went from 350 for the writing up to 1,000 with just images, then 5,000 in about a year and a half when I started doing both together, the narratives. And now, yeah.
Does that mean anything to you as far as, in terms of, okay, I've got 12,000, 13,000 followers and I got all these people who are like looking for something. What does that mean to you? And do you worry about it at all?
Dion, that's an exceptional question with not a very easy answer. I look at the number with amazement because I never anticipated it. And so that's the number one thing with amazement. But it's also a cautionary tale that I want my page to be able to be embraced by people regardless of what their political beliefs are, their theological beliefs or absence thereof. I want everyone to be able to read a narrative and not say, well, that belongs to this particular group of people. It doesn't apply to me. I want everybody to be able to do that, and I take that as an obligation to everybody.
Right.
The whole of the 13,000 needs to be able to wrap their hearts around what I'm trying to say here or what I'm trying to do, not because of a particular belief or political stand, but because what I'm showing them, it doesn't matter what your perspective is, this applies to you too.
Have you ever had instances where some of these people who are just trolling, and they go around and they drop insensitive comments or they're trying to rile something up, make something that isn't there? Do you ever get that? And how do you deal with that?
If they are trolling, I give them the voice to be able to say their piece.
Yeah.
If they become repetitive trollers, I block them because I can, not because I necessarily want to or even need to for that matter, because most of the people that follow my page understand that this is just a troll.
Yeah.
I don't need to defend myself.
Yeah.
But there is the occasion where someone will politicize an image or something that I've said. And when that happens, I will delete their comment.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to inspire a firestorm of debate on a page intended to be sanctuary for people who want solace from that sort of thing. They don't want to come to my page and see someone talk about how much they hate this guy or that person or this policy or whatever. Now, that goes for the political aspects of it. As far as people sharing their religious insights about my work, I won't remove that because I consider I don't care if you are a Nibiru Anonymous follower. If you think that my work has been inspired by whatever theology that you follow, to me, that's a great compliment.
Yeah.
That's not an insult. I appreciate that kind of reflection that somebody might have.
I love that. That's kind of where I struggle with some of those folks who do that.
It was a learning curve for me.
Yeah.
I'll be honest with you, Dion. Earlier, when that sort of thing would happen, I took it very personal.
Yeah.
I even got angry. And sometimes I would say something. But then that wasn't a reflection on them anymore. That was also a reflection on me. And so I would remove my comment or I would remove the whole thread of comments. But I had to learn how to tame myself as this page began to grow because, as you've said, there are people who just are that way. They have to find an issue with anything that they can find an issue with.
You know, one of the things we see a lot is everything's kind of come down to a soundbite. Whether you're on X or you're on something else, you know, it's very short and everybody's trying to get a point across. Yet there's so much information that's just like almost smothering to us in the world. And with you, with so many followers, I would really be a little bit nervous. And I don't know how you keep up with it. You know, just keeping up with it would be a chore. But I'm going to ask you some questions about that when we come back.
Sounds good.
This is Keeping It Real, brought to you by Sean Yeterian and the team right here at Long Realty Studios behind Denny's on Fry Boulevard. We're here for all your real estate needs, and we're here for you, the community. We'll keep it real with Sean Yeterian. We'll be right back. All right, welcome back. Welcome back to Saturday morning. Hope you're enjoying the show with Sean here and I, just kind of talking about his background, his page, Arizonan Yeti on Facebook, and just kind of talking about professional photography. Well, I don't know. Do you consider yourself professional photography?
No.
Or are you just
I'm a hobbyist? Yeah, I'm a hobbyist. Yeah, I sell my work. If that makes me professional,
kind of
then
professional a little bit.
I guess I'm on that seesaw. I don't.
I've seen your work. It's pretty good. I don't know. For somebody like me, it's definitely a step up. So I look at you as maybe a professional. I'm not sure.
I would consider a professional who can actually pay his bills by the work that he does.
That's
and
fair.
I'm not going to be able to pay my bills just off of my photography. So I better do it because I love to do it.
Yeah. When we broke, we were talking a little bit about, you got this page, almost 13,000 followers, a lot of responsibility. You have some influence.
I don't know if I should say I'm afraid to say that I do, or I'm happy to say that I do. But as long as I keep that influence in a positive direction, I don't really feel that there's a weight of huge responsibility. I just need to stay authentic and true to who I am.
Well, you had talked about the brevity piece of it, and I brought up, like X and everything. Everything comes in sound bites, headlines, everything else. Shock factor, steer you into things. I like that yours are, your comments and whatnot. I've read quite a few of them, and they're very descriptive. Is there a certain perspective that you're trying to offer in that?
Yes, absolutely. There's perspective, and it's really been there almost from the beginning. I have basically two mantras. I have the mantra that the most beautiful place in the world is right there where you are. And what that intends to say is that, take a look around and you'll find beauty all around you.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if you're in Arizona or if you're in the middle of Death Valley, you're going to find beauty around you. And it's just a matter of figuring out where you need to be or what angles you need to take in order to capture that beauty. And so that's the goal. And I came up with that when I was at Cochise College because I was in class and we were doing presentations on artists that we found to be inspirational to our work. And I had chose Ansel Adams. And so the first half of my presentation was about Ansel Adams, and the second half was about me and my work and how it's been impacted by him. And I remember one of the first things that came out of my mouth about Ansel Adams was, how can you go wrong? You have Yosemite. If you have Yosemite, you can't go wrong. And then I began to look at my own work from around Sierra Vista, Cochise County, and I realized, oh my God, okay, this isn't Yosemite, but take a look at the beauty that surrounds us. And it landed on me, an epiphany. The most beautiful place in the world isn't where somebody else is, but it's right there where you are. All you have to do is learn how to find it.
Well, I love how you use angles to almost present another feeling of the same place. It's all in the perspective, and I'm a strong believer of perspective, right? Everybody has a different perspective, and sometimes just being able to look at it from a different angle is worth its weight in gold. It's interesting how you use a lot of that to really bring something out. Is that intentional?
It is intentional. That I'm searching for the right angle is intentional. That I find the angle is a journey in and of itself. So thank God for digital photography, because
you can see it.
Well, I also have a card that can take 10,000 images. And so I can take dozens and dozens and dozens of the same scene from different angles. And then when I look through it, find the one that best
speaks to you.
Speaks to me. Exactly.
Yeah, I gotcha.
And so I have this technology to be thankful for, because back in the days when we had 12, 24, 36 exposure rolls of film, you had to learn how to get it right away.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're just throwing money out the window.
And there were so many mishaps, too, along the way. I can remember you open up the back and you've exposed all your film, and sometimes the little latch wouldn't be tight or something and pop open. And yeah, just all kinds of things that go wrong. And nowadays, these cameras are amazing. They have such clarity. Even a novice can take some pretty fantastic photos. We bought a lens. My wife bought it when we went to Africa, and first time ever over there, so it was really exciting, and we wanted to have something really fantastic. So we bought this lens for this camera that we had, and it was a really big zoom because I wanted to get some really good photos. And one thing is, it was heavy. I never really kind of thought about that. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is so heavy. We spent a lot of times with it on my shoulder or her shoulder. We did have a little monopod, but it was barely adequate. But we took a few pictures. I got a picture of a leopard out in the wild while I was out in the field. A very unexpected encounter. And
very cool.
It was like National Geographic. I mean, it was that good. I was just so shocked that I took that picture.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite pictures of all time.
Well, I will tell you that that mantra that I told you, the most beautiful place in the world is right there where you are, that was one of my original themes to guide my philosophy and to help inspire other people. But really the one that had the most impact was learning to view our world in full screen. And that started off because when I would post a landscape-oriented picture on my page, it's best viewed when you click on it and it goes to a full screen version.
Oh, yeah, I've seen you say that.
And so best viewed in full screen was the repeated statement at the end of every landscape-oriented photograph. But I am not the type of person who likes to use the same words to say the same thing over and over again. I hate being repetitive and redundant. So I started coming up with creative ways to say best viewed in full screen. Well, that went through its own metamorphosis, because now I started to realize that it's more about just making the picture bigger. It's about how we view our world. And so this has become a strong message over the course of the last years about how we interpret our worlds, because of all of the misinformation, all of the spin. I don't care what news outlet you listen to or watch or read, or what social media site you happen to be on, you are being just obliterated with all kinds of, I hate to call it anything other than what I think it is, garbage that is intended to spin your mind into a particular direction. And if you allow that to happen, well, then you're part of the problem. And so my message is how about we try and expand the discussion, get the full context of what's happening, the full picture, before we go out there and spew a particular idea with only the headline hook that we consume to begin with.
Right.
So now this idea of make this picture bigger suddenly became make your picture bigger, and then communicate what you've learned and what you've earned through your own research, through your own eyes, so that you can communicate more effectively and actually be more educated and aware of what's going on around you.
I love it. I really like the aspect of taking that time, like you said, to not just create clickbait out there. There's so much of that out there. Yeah, sometimes too, there'll be something that will, entice you into clicking on something so you can read some article or see some picture, and it's not even there. It never really was. It was just to guide you into this debate over some topic or some nonsense, and you walk away from it usually, not very happy and not very satisfied.
Well, I think everybody's earned their right to their opinion, but I also think that everybody needs to continue to grow. and to earn even more right to their opinion by learning more about the topics that they love to speak about. And that is, and that's where I think that the greatest challenge on my page is when I do my narratives, is ensuring that I'm not nudging anybody in any particular direction, but just giving them the opportunity to think things through. So I want, if you read my work, it isn't meant to convince you that I'm right.
One thing or another, yeah.
It's meant to help you broaden your own way of perceiving yourself, your world, and what's happening around you. And that takes effort. And anything that takes effort can sometimes be challenging for some people. It's like, I don't have time for that. And yet they'll be the first ones to comment about the things they don't have time to research into. So that's...
Do you ever find yourself searching for like a particular content, or just kind of, you freewheel it pretty much? Just kind of like, hey, this happened to me today, and I'm just going to explore where that takes me.
You know, it's I never know what's going to be written until it's been written. It's one of those odd things. I don't know how to explain it. I don't know that I even want to try, because it just starts sounding mushy or weird. All I know is that I'll sit behind my monitor with a blank sheet of digital paper, and 15, 20 minutes later, I'll have several paragraphs. I'll have a poem. I'll have a stream of consciousness thing. I'll have something written.
Right.
And very often, I don't even realize that I've written it until I've got to I'm vaguely aware that I'm typing something, that my fingers are dancing across the keyboard, and I can see what's being written, but it just kind of happens. And then I'll go back and edit it and say, well, this can be stronger. I can do that better. But it's been the way I've written throughout my entire life.
Yeah.
It just has not been a struggle for me, and thank goodness, because life would be very different for me if I had to struggle through my ability to communicate.
Speaking of that, when you're at the keyboard, is it liberating a little bit that because you've had this long career in the Army and other things where you were, you fit in a little box, kind of, so to speak, and you're writing, or you're following a lead on some kind of intelligence, and you're really structured, I guess. And this is so free. Do you find that liberating?
I think that that might be a little bit of a myth. Yes, you're right, especially when it came to technical writing in the Army, especially when you start talking about reports and stuff. You were limited as far as how that should look, how that should feel. They don't start using these words that take you away from the intent, which is to be very the brevity and the specificity of what needs to be said, because we don't have time to waste with your flowery language, Sean.
Right.
And yet, when I prepare to stand in front of a group of soldiers and try and inspire and motivate them to take that next hill, I don't script that. I don't write that out, but I am free to tap into my spirit of who I am at that time as a leader, as a combat arms leader, and provide for them. So I've always had that
opportunity,
freedom, and I've always exercised it. But so the question was how do I translate that into the civilian life? And I got to tell you, Dion, just walking away from being of service into the abyss of nothingness, where you were relevant on Sunday and you are irrelevant on Monday, was like stepping off the edge of a cliff for me. So yeah, I had to find a new way of communicating my passion, my love of life, my passion for the beauty around me. And that wound up taking 5 years, but it eventually landed in a camera.
Wow. That's really cool. Well, let's take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about something that's near and dear to you, something you're kind of exploring and part of your journey, and that's artificial intelligence. I know that's a little bit off script. We talked about it in the very, very beginning of the show, but I just want to touch base on that, and I have a funny feeling that we're going to have some more conversations in the future over that topic. But so this is Keeping It Real, brought to you by Sean Ethell. Going to keep it real with Sean Yeterian, and we're going to be right back after these brief messages. All right, welcome back to Keeping It Real. Brought to you by Sean Ethell and the team right here at Long Realty Studios. And we're keeping it real with Sean Yeterian, and he is a photographer, a writer, and so much more as we kind of explore yet another person in our community. You know, we always talk about it. There's great stories behind every organization and every personality. You know, there's just really cool stuff. Great, you know, people we have in this community. You know, you've got this webpage, and if you're just breaking in, folks, to the show, and you just hopped in your car or something like that, you know, we've been talking about Sean and his ability to take phenomenal photographs. Hasn't been doing that long, really. How many years now?
9 years.
9 years.
Yeah.
So a very short time, but very, very amazing. So if you haven't seen it, go to Arizonan Yeti and take a look, because they're amazing. But he's also writing in there and sharing some of his philosophies and things, and just his thoughts on different things and different aspects, and having some interesting conversations and stuff with some of his equipment, and just it's just fun stuff. And so we're talking about that. But one of the areas that he also has an interest in is, you know, I think you had talked about in the beginning, you were kind of doing your blog on just learning all these things, and now one of them is artificial intelligence. It's something that's fast becoming part of everyday life. I kind of think about it, and we talked about this before the show, Sean. From my era, at least, you know, computers didn't really exist in the same way they do now. We didn't have home computers. I remember the first home computer we had looked like a gigantic brick and with a little tiny screen
That's
on
right.
it. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't connected to the internet. There was no internet or anything like that. It's really what you put into it. You know, you had to program it, not even Microsoft Windows or anything. That came way later. So I look at AI technology as kind of, we're in that infancy, maybe further along than we really realize, because there's all kinds of other applications working behind the scenes in the research and development of this new technology and structure. But as far as we're concerned, we're kind of just emerging. What do you think about AI technology?
Well, I think that we do have a couple of generations looking at AI from completely different perspectives. The younger generation, sure. I'm not worried about the younger generation, because it's all they know.
Right.
They'll learn how to navigate through all of the changes, even though it's happening at a much more rapid pace than ever before in all of humanity.
Sometimes I think that they're more prepared for it. You know,
I think they are. Yeah.
It's so like normal for them.
Exactly. But for those of us who have lived a nice, well, we've been around for a while, sure. Since pre desktops, and yeah. I remember not having it. I remember when the IBM handheld calculator came out, and I said, "Ooh, I want one." No, you can't have one, because you'll just use it to cheat in school with.
Right.
You know, oh man, and they were like $500 for a calculator. Oh, yeah. It just. Yeah. But, you know, things have come a long, long ways. However, the rise in that technology has been based pretty much along what's known as Moore's Law. And that's about every 18 months, the speed or the cost of semiconductors and the cost of it all, the speed doubles, basically.
Right.
We'll just say the speed doubles.
Increasing, yeah.
And that had been going on for a long, long time. Well, Moore's Law is no longer a thing anymore.
Right.
Because now we, especially in the past couple of several years now, right. With the onset of AI, we're now in a rise that is beyond most people's comprehension. It's almost a straight up and down, on a graph, it almost looks like it's straight up and down, from a gradual rise to almost a rocket ship of technology rising every single day. And it's got a term for it, that rise that we happen to be in the middle of. It's called the AI singularity. And we are in the middle of an AI singularity. And as sci-fi as that may sound, that is also the reason why a lot of people I either reject it or deny it or just don't want to know anything about it.
Well, sometimes too, you know, don't you think that we're a movie culture, right? And we've had all these great movies, and it's kind of like when Jaws came around, it changed how people look at sharks. Even it was just changed the whole dynamic of oceanography. Even and here we are in this situation. We've all seen Terminator, and we've all seen all these movies, right?
Absolutely.
And so a lot of people, have their understanding of things based on what they've seen, even if it's not real.
Well, we've been pre-trained on how we should accommodate new tech.
Right.
Because Hollywood has pretty much spooked us into thinking that this is going to be a bad thing. I'm more of an optimist, Dion. I gotta be honest with you. I see benefit. I see enhancement to our passions that we possess, not replacement of who we are. I see that the human element, the human ingredient is not going to be surpassed or even equaled by artificial intelligence, because it won't have the constructs of who we have learned to become. We've got a lifetime of experience and a lifetime of learning hard lessons that we can bring to the forefront when we create. And creation is really where there's been this fine line, I think, crossed over by AI. But is it really AI that's crossed over the line, or the people who engineer it and then claim it to be theirs, or claim it to be real when in fact it isn't real? AI isn't making that claim. The person who wrote the prompts and generated the image or the video, they're saying, this really happened. And it didn't, but it's getting more and more difficult to be able to
discern
identify.
them. Yeah, it really is.
It's a problem.
I know if you're just looking at reels, for example, right? And I used to be not the person to look at reels much. My wife was all the time. She was constantly, oh, this is hilarious. Look at these little dogs. But I've kind of come down the rabbit hole every once in a while. But now there's so much material out there, you really don't know if it's real or not. And a lot of it, is probably not real. And it's harder and harder to discern that, because the images get better and better, and the fluidity and everything in the videos look better. There's a great humor side of it, I think, to me at least. And I don't know, I'll get your take on it, but memes became a thing at one point, and just joke about different things that's happening. And and now you've got these videos. They are not real. You got Yeti, in fact, and the Bigfoot guy, and talking about stuff. Oftentimes that are, topics that somebody would get, in trouble for talking about it, but they say it out on there, but they're hilarious. And I love, some of the humor that is brought out in people. So I do like that piece of it. How do you feel about that?
I think that AI is a magnificent tool. I'll give you an example. I use it on my personal Facebook page, a profile picture that was completely created with AI. It's of me, but I said, I want you to create a photograph based off of a photograph I had for it to use as reference. I said, use this photograph for reference, and then put me in the middle of a painted desert at sunset with saguaro cactus in the background, and me with cowboy hat and kind of a leather jacket on.
Oh, yeah.
And it came up with oh man, this thing is like, man, I got to go out and buy that hat and jacket because I look so good in it.
Yeah.
It wasn't real, but it was definitely me, my face, and I had a camera dangling around my neck. So it was completely embraced the personality of who I am. But when I posted it, and this is key, this is the important thing, when I posted it, I let people know that this was generated by AI.
And I love that. That's nice.
That has to happen.
That should happen. Yeah.
That has to. I mean, it's okay if you like it, if you love it, and a lot of people
totally
did.
Funny or great, and entertaining.
Yeah, but do not. And this is what I hope we can eventually get to is holding people accountable for making claims that aren't true.
Yeah.
That's what I hope we can get to. But is the legalities, I mean, this is being litigated in court right now. A lot of the stuff about AI is under litigation in courts. There's arguments about how AI learns its craft through creators, singers, through artists, and without their compliance, whether or not they can sue.
Yeah.
OpenAI or Anthropic or any of these companies.
And you've been doing a little experimenting on your own too with music, right?
I have.
And doing some artificial intelligence based exploring.
And the results have been magnificent. I've been writing, as you know, I've been writing since I was a young child, and poetry has always been one of those things that I've written about. Little could I have ever guessed that someday those poems that I had been writing throughout my life, all I would need to do is learn how to write a chorus, write a bridge, and perhaps an outro, and then jam that stuff in there to a AI song generator, and my life has suddenly turned into a musical.
Yeah.
And not just a musical, but this work is just absolutely incredible. Now, I could have done it the traditional way and paid $10,000 to hire a sheetwriter, to hire a singer, to hire a band, to rent the studio and hire the studio technician in order to create one version of the song that I wrote.
Pretty untouchable for most people.
Right. Yeah. It was to me too. Not going to do that. Not going to. And then you may or may not like the version that they
how
create.
terrible would that be? Yeah.
So, but now I can jam it in there, and in less than 2 minutes, I can have two versions based on the guidance that I give it. What I would like, the genre music, country rock.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Whatever. Voices, male, tempo, all of that information. I tell it what I would like for it to sound like, and it provides for me two versions. And if I don't like those two versions, I can just do it again until eventually.
It's kind of like that digital photography thing, you know?
Exactly.
You got another one. I love the fact, too, that you can do that. It's such a time saver. And we're going to talk about, folks, in the future, maybe get together again and talk more deeply on this subject. But I think it's an interesting perspective because, there's some legitimate things that I think are, at least in my opinion, things to be nervous about if we don't take some level of control over. But there's also kind of like you were talking about, hey, if this is fake, there's no problem with saying that, that I created this with this. Awesome. And embrace that. But at the same time, if you're trying to pass it off as real, that's a whole different thing. And I'm a super big oath and integrity kind of guy and everything. And I believe in making sure that the public aren't deceived by something that I'm doing. I think that's important. But at the same time, it can save you time. You could do all that in a time to create another cup of coffee.
Right.
Crazy.
Right. It's insane. And it's insane that this is it's only really been around for a couple of years, but it's improved. Every single day, it's
better and better.
Yeah, it gets better and better. And I'll tell you something, Dion. That the one thing that you can do is be angry at it, and that's fine. I understand the anxiety, and there's a lot of very valid reasons to be angry at the society that AI is forging ahead. And I get that.
Yeah.
But the one thing that you can't do is be unaware of it.
Right.
Or you shouldn't do. Let me just rephrase that. You can do anything you want, but you shouldn't be unaware of it. You might even want to find ways that it can enhance your own passions, your own needs, because it can do that too.
It's amazing.
And then there are things well beyond our daily usage of ChatGPT and Grok and Claude and all of these other platforms that AI is also doing that may very well change our world forever in positive ways. And to turn a blind eye to all of this or to pretend it isn't happening, I think is probably not the best course, but to become part of the conversation to help guide this technology in positive and meaningful ways. Well, that's all of our voices together, harmonizing and saying, this is what we need. We don't need this BS, but we could certainly use this.
Right. For those people who hope it goes away or that think maybe this is just a fad, I think that train's left the station. I think that we're far beyond that. And it's going to change the world again, kind of like computers did in our generation. It's going to change the world, but I think on a much grander scale. And I'd love to talk to you more about it. I think it's it's worthy of probably multiple conversations about, and just educating people on some of the things that we're learning from a layman perspective, right? Just like the rest of you out there. Right?
I think now that I've said what I wanted to say about AI, that everybody has to understand that I'm not a coder. I'm not a computer geek. I'm just one. I'm another member at your dinner table having the same conversation everybody else is having about AI. And I just want to participate in that conversation.
Me too. I think it'll be a worthy conversation to have. And I'd love to get some take on some younger generations too, on what they're seeing, because again, they're absorbed into it. We're kind of navigating it. And so it's interesting, different perspectives on the same thing, but it's definitely something that we're going to see a lot of changes in, and it's worthy of a conversation, if nothing else. Well, Sean, I've really enjoyed the conversation with you, but we're out of time, and it's just so fast. I told you it was going to go by quick. Folks, I talked to him in the studio beforehand. We had a long conversation about different things, aspects of his life, and an hour just flies by.
Absolutely. Well, I really enjoyed the time we spent together, Dion, and I hope we can do this again.
Yeah, me too. I think it'll be fun. And I hope you find it interesting as we kind of explore some more things, and we'll try to do that a little more regularly. So, Sean, thank you again for coming on the show. And, folks, we'll be right back with a few brief messages. But this is the Sherry Ethell team, Long Realty Studios, keeping it real.